The galaxy had many strange legends, but none were whispered as softly, or as fearfully, as the story of the woman whose lips could kill. In every outer colony, people spoke her name with shaking voices. Soldiers claimed she could stop a man's heart with a single kiss. Captains warned their crews to avoid her kind at all costs, and traders swore they once saw her pass by, leaving 3 armored guards lying lifeless on the metallic floor, their faces peaceful as if they had fallen asleep. But no one knew the truth behind her curse. Did not want to kill. She was born among a silver-skinned race whose lips carried a natural toxin, strong enough to stop even the strongest alien warrior. They called it a gift. She called it a prison. Every time she spoke, she covered her mouth. Every time she breathed, she feared harming someone. She had never hugged anyone. She had never kissed anyone. She had never felt a warm touch on her own skin. She lived like a ghost, seen, feared, but never understood. Tonight she walked alone on a dim, broken space station hanging near the edge of an abandoned star. The walls hissed from leaking pipes and the lights flickered like dying fireflies. She had come with a small scouting team, but they kept their distance from her as usual. Their orders were simple: investigate the station and leave before it collapsed, but felt something in the air, something strange and unfamiliar, something almost human. She stepped carefully over a fallen beam, her soft boots echoing across the empty hall. Her silver hair glowed faintly in the emergency red lights. The silence felt thick, heavy, choking. Then she heard it, a groan of pain, a human voice. Without thinking, she followed the sound until she reached a ruined control room. Sparks danced from broken wires. The smell of burnt metal filled the air, and lying beneath a chunk of twisted steel was a man. He was young, maybe in his late 20s, with dark hair messy from the crash and grease smudged across his cheeks. His engineer uniform was torn at the shoulder. His breath came in painful gasps as he tried, and failed, to lift the metal trapping his leg. Froze. A human. A living one. He looked at her with weak eyes, expecting fear, expecting hatred, expecting the horror that everyone felt when they saw her. But instead of shrinking away, instead of trembling, he whispered, "Hey, are you real?" His heart stuttered. Humans usually ran. They usually screamed. No one ever asked if she was real. She lifted a hand but stopped before reaching him. "Don't come close," she said softly, her voice muffled behind her gloved fingers. "I am dangerous." The man tried to smile even through the pain. "Everything on this station is dangerous right now. You're the least of my problems." No one had ever spoken to her like that. No fear. No disgust. Just calm. "I'm Elias," he said, shifting slightly under the metal beam. "Engineer, bad luck with explosions." Hesitated before answering. He blinked. "Oh, the kiss of death species." He said it casually, as if talking about weather. She looked down, ashamed. "Yes, that is why you must not come near me." But Elias only took a slow breath and said, "Well, I'm not exactly planning to get kissed right now, so I think we're safe." For a moment, forgot to breathe. He laughed. A soft, warm laugh that felt like sunlight on frozen ground. Then the station groaned loudly, warning them that collapse was close. Dust fell from the ceiling. A distant blast shook the walls. Stepped forward despite her fear. "You will die if you stay here. I can help you get out." Elias nodded, though pain twisted his features. "I could use a hand or two." She slid closer, careful, gentle, terrified of harming him. Slowly she lifted the beam. Elias pulled his leg free with a wince. When he stood, he stumbled, and she caught his arm instinctively, her heart leaping in terror. Skin touched skin for a moment, her breath stopped. But Elias didn't fall. Didn't die. Didn't even flinch. He simply met her wide eyes and whispered, "Your touch is warm." Warm. Not deadly. Not cursed. Warm. For the first time in her life, someone felt warmth from her. And in that moment, in the broken ruins of a dying station, felt something she had never felt before: hope. The alarms on the station blared like the cries of a dying star. Sparks rained from broken panels and smoke curled into the dim corridors. led Elias through the chaos, her silver hair catching the flickering red lights as they moved. Every step she took was careful, deliberate. She kept her distance, afraid even a single accidental brush of her lips could end him. But he didn't seem afraid. "You're not running," she said softly as they ducked under a falling beam. Her voice trembled. "No human has ever stayed when they saw me up close." Elias glanced at her, brushing soot from his uniform. "I don't run from people who are scared of themselves. I run from danger I can't fight, and maybe I don't run from someone who could use a friend." Her heart skipped a beat. A friend? She had never been called that. Humans avoided her, soldiers hated her, even the she was born among treated her like a weapon to fear. But Elias, he looked at her with calm eyes, not weapons, not fear, just understanding. Swallowed, trying to focus. "The station is unstable. We need the shuttle to leave before the core collapses. If we don't get out in time, nothing will survive." Elias nodded, wincing as he adjusted his leg. "Lead the way." Her breath caught, he trusted her. And for some reason she felt a flicker of warmth in her chest, something fragile, something dangerous, something she had never allowed herself to feel. As they ran through the debris-filled corridors, noticed the small things about him. His determined steps, even when his leg hurt. The way he examined broken panels as if trying to understand them, not just escape. The faint scar above his brow that made him human, imperfect, alive. She wanted to protect him, not because he was a human, but because he was him. They reached the shuttle bay, but the doors were damaged, sparks falling like tiny stars. Elias knelt to examine the control panel. "I can override the locks," he said, "but it will take time." "Time we may not have," whispered, scanning the bay for falling metal or exposed wiring. She had grown used to danger, but it felt different with him beside her. She didn't want him to get hurt. He looked up at her, his dark eyes steady. "Then I'll work faster, you cover me." Her lips parted slightly, startled. Cover her, he trusted her, he wanted her to protect him. Nothing in her life had ever asked that. Her chest tightened. For a moment she imagined herself just leaning down, touching his shoulder, whispering, "It's okay. I've got you," but she stopped. One mistake could kill him. One kiss could end his life. The panel sparked in Elias' hands, and he yelped, jerking back. Stepped forward instinctively, placing a hand lightly on his arm. For the first time, she felt the warmth of human skin against hers, and not as death, not as a curse, but as something gentle. "You okay?" she asked, voice barely audible over the alarms. Elias nodded, a small smile breaking across his dusty face. "I'm okay, thanks to you." She blinked. Thanks to me? Could it really be that simple? She had always believed her existence was a hazard, a curse meant to bring fear, not warmth. And yet here was a human standing beside her, not afraid, not running, not screaming. Minutes passed as Elias worked. Scanned the bay, noting every loose panel, every crack in the walls. She could hear the faint creaking of the station above them, the vibrations of engines failing. Danger was coming closer. Suddenly, a section of the ceiling collapsed nearby, sending dust and metal shards into the air. His reflexes were fast. She grabbed Elias and pulled him behind a fallen crate. Her heart pounded violently. "You don't have to protect me," he said, coughing through the smoke. "But I'm glad you do." Her lips parted, words caught in her throat. How could she explain that protecting him wasn't just duty, it was something she wanted? Something that terrified her because caring so much could be dangerous, because loving him could kill him. She exhaled, forcing herself to focus. The shuttle now. Together they moved, weaving through falling debris, dodging sparks and near-fatal edges. Each time her hand brushed his, she felt it, a strange, impossible connection. His presence calmed her, warmed her, made the lethal world around them fade for a moment. Finally, they reached the shuttle. The doors still needed manual override. Elias knelt, wires in hand, while kept watch. Her eyes darted to the corners, half expecting soldiers or automated defense systems to appear, to destroy him just for being human. Elias glanced up, noticing her tense posture. "You don't have to be afraid of me," he said softly. "I'm not afraid of you." His chest tightened. Not afraid of me. No one had ever said that, not even her own people. For the first time, she felt the seed of hope. Perhaps she could survive, not as a weapon feared by all, but as someone who could exist, who could care, who could be cared for. And perhaps, just perhaps, this human could be the reason. As she watched him work, sparks flying around his hands, silently vowed she would keep him alive. No matter the cost, no matter the danger, no matter what the universe threw at them. Because for the first time in her long, lonely life, she had found someone who didn't run. Someone who saw her not as a curse, but as a being capable of warmth. And that was worth everything. The shuttle's lights flickered as Elias worked to override the controls. Sparks danced like tiny lightning bolts, illuminating the sweat and grime on their faces. The station groaned and shifted under their feet. Every vibration reminded them that the structure was dying, that every second counted. His heart thudded violently in her chest, not from fear of the station collapsing, but from the human beside her. Elias knelt at the control panel, his fingers deftly twisting wires and punching sequences into the failing system. Watched, her silver hair falling over her shoulders, trembling slightly. She had trained all her life to be precise, to fight, to survive, but nothing had prepared her for this. A moment where the human mattered more than her own life, more than her fear, more than the danger around them. Suddenly, a metal beam above the console creaked and snapped, falling directly toward Elias. He gasped, unable to move in time. Reacted instantly, racing forward, muscles coiling like springs. She tried to lift the beam herself, but it was heavier than she expected. Her hands shook, her breath caught, and panic surged through her veins. "Elias," she shouted, leaning close to him. "Move." He tried, but his legs still ached from the previous crash. He struggled, groaning as he pushed against the beam. Realized she would have to act quickly. Time was slipping, the station's core warning echoing like a death knell. She bent over, gripping the edges of the metal with every ounce of strength, heart hammering so violently she thought it might burst from her chest. And then it happened. Her lips brushed his arm as she leaned in closer to guide him. A reflex, an instinct, something human within her urged her to comfort him, to make him safe. But in that instant she froze. Her curse, her deadly kiss, should have struck. It had always killed instantly, left even the strongest warriors lifeless. But Elias, he didn't die. He blinked up at her, confused, blood on his temple, sweat on his brow. I'm okay," he whispered, voice trembling from pain and disbelief. His hands fell slack. How are you alive?" Her voice was barely audible, trembling with shock. Her mind raced through every possibility. Maybe he was immune, maybe something was wrong with her curse, maybe the universe was testing her. Elias shifted slightly, wincing. "I feel warm, nothing hurts from your touch. Your lips, they don't hurt me, they feel safe." Took a sharp breath. Safe, not deadly, not lethal, safe. Her chest tightened, emotions flooding her like a tidal wave. She had spent centuries believing herself a weapon, a danger to everyone around her. Every touch was a threat. Every glance could bring death. But here was a human, trembling, battered, still alive, and telling her that she was warmth. For a brief moment, the chaos around them faded. Sparks still flew, alarms still screamed, but all could see was him. The human who didn't scream, who didn't run, who didn't die. Her heart, long dormant under fear and training, began to beat in a rhythm it had never known. Hope, wonder, and an unfamiliar, exhilarating tenderness. You should have died," she murmured, voice breaking. "You should not be alive." Elias shook his head slowly, a weak smile crossing his face. "Maybe your curse doesn't work on people who don't fear you." She stared at him, unable to speak. Fear or love? Could it be that simple? Could it be that someone's trust, their lack of fear, could change something as fundamental as her deadly nature? "You saved me," he said quietly, placing a shaky hand over hers. "And somehow you've made me feel alive in a way I never imagined." Her lips parted. She wanted to tell him that she had never known anyone who could survive her touch, who could see her as anything other than a monster, but words failed her. For the first time, she felt fragile, vulnerable, human. The station shook violently, knocking debris from the ceiling, pulled him closer instinctively, shielding him from falling metal. In that instant, she realized something extraordinary. The power she had always feared, the deadly curse she thought was her identity, was not absolute, not in his presence. For the first time, she did not feel like a weapon. She felt like someone who could exist, who could love, who could protect. And he felt warmth, not death, from her. Her heart thudded violently as she whispered, almost to herself, "Maybe you are the reason I can survive too." Elias looked up at her, confusion and wonder in his dark eyes. The reason. She didn't answer. Words felt too small for what she was feeling. Instead, she simply took a careful step back, ensuring he was safe, and nodded toward the shuttle. "We need to leave, now." Elias rose, wincing slightly, but his hand found hers. Their fingers brushed, another moment where warmth passed between them, where fear became hope. And realized something powerful. Maybe her curse was not just her prison. Maybe it was also the key to a bond no one had ever imagined could exist, between a human and the woman who had been feared across the stars. Together they ran toward the shuttle, heartbeats in sync, danger closing in behind them, but a new, fragile hope guiding them forward. The moment an Elias reached the shuttle bay, a warning siren blared across the station. Red lights flashed, bathing the walls in a crimson glow that made every shadow look like a predator. His heart sank. The High Council had been monitoring her every move. They would know she had touched a human, and that human had survived. That was forbidden. That was treason. "They'll come," whispered, her voice trembling as she glanced toward the main corridor. "Hunters, elite warriors, they will kill you and me." Elia's dark eyes met hers. Despite the exhaustion and pain etched into his features, there was no fear, only determination. "Then we fight or we run, but I am not leaving you to face them alone." Her chest tightened. No one had ever said that to her, not even her own people. She had always been alone. A weapon, feared, deadly, untouchable. But here, with him beside her, she felt something she had never known, trust. And frighteningly, she felt love beginning to bloom. The first hunter appeared in the corridor beyond the bay. Tall, armored, and moving with lethal precision, the warrior's eyes glowed faintly under the helmet. They were unmatched in combat. Even trained human soldiers would fall instantly. Yet Elias stood firm. "Stay behind me," whispered, instinctive fear tightening her chest. He shook his head. "No, we face this together. If they want to fight, they'll get it. But they won't take either of us without a struggle." His breath caught. His courage was reckless. But there was something about his defiance, about his refusal to flee, that stirred her heart. She had spent her life striking from shadows, avoiding bonds, avoiding connection. And yet here he was, standing as if her life and his were equally valuable. The hunters advanced, blades glowing with energy, their movements precise and calculated. Instincts kicked in. She moved fluidly, dodging attacks, countering with speed and grace honed over centuries. But she avoided using her lips, the deadly kiss she was trained to deploy against enemies. Not yet. Not while Elias stood there, his life in her hands. One hunter lunged toward Elias, aiming a precise strike at his chest. Screamed and pushed him aside, absorbing the blow with her own body. Sparks flew as energy blades clashed, and the humans' shouts echoed through the bay. "Why are you helping me?" Elias gasped, catching his breath. "Why risk yourself?" Her silver eyes locked on his. "Because I cannot lose you," she said softly. "Because you are the first human who made me feel alive." His hand brushed hers in fleeting contact, and a warmth passed between them that no weapon, no danger, no curse could extinguish. The hunters were relentless. Another struck from behind and twisted, her movements like water, precise and deadly. She could feel her curse simmering beneath the surface, the lethal potential in her lips, the ancient power that had kept her alive but feared. She wanted to unleash it, but she could not. Elias was too close. She had to protect him, not destroy. One hunter struck again, faster than her reflexes could follow. His hand shot out instinctively, and her lips brushed his neck in a desperate attempt to stop the strike. A heartbeat later, the hunter collapsed, froze in horror and disbelief. Elia's eyes widened. "You didn't mean to, did you?" he whispered. I didn't," she stammered. Her lips trembled. Every instinct screamed at her to flee, to hide, to protect him from herself. And yet, in that moment, she realized the terrible truth. Her power was uncontrollable when someone threatened him. Her love for him had awakened the lethal side of her nature. More hunters rushed forward, their movements synchronized, deadly. His heart raced, sweat dripping down her temples. She felt the raw edge of survival, the pressure of life and death pressing against every nerve. Elias stood firm beside her, wielding a metal pipe like a makeshift weapon, striking with courage that is human fragility. "You don't have to die for me," he shouted, swinging the pipe against one hunter's leg. "But I won't let you fight alone." Her chest tightened with emotion. No one had ever risked themselves for her before, not for her, the weapon, the feared. But here he was, human, fragile, and defiant, fighting beside her as if their lives were bound together. And somehow in that chaos, in the sparks and the flashing red lights, felt something she had never felt before: hope. Hope, she realized, was more dangerous than any enemy, more powerful than her curse, and more frightening. Because she had never dared to believe that someone like Elias could exist. Someone who would face death with her, who would touch her without fear, who would make her feel human. And in that realization, a promise formed in her heart. She would protect him, no matter the cost, no matter the danger, no matter the deadly power within her. Because for the first time, she was not alone. And perhaps, just perhaps, he was worth everything. The shuttle bay was chaos. Sparks flew from damaged panels, red lights flashing across jagged metal and shattered consoles. Hunters closed in, their energy blades glowing like deadly fire. Moved with lethal grace, her silver hair trailing behind her, every step calculated, every motion precise. But her eyes were fixed on Elias. He was wounded, his leg aching, his uniform torn, yet he stood firm beside her, gripping a metal pipe like a shield. His dark eyes held a fierce determination that startled even. She had never seen courage like this. Not in a soldier, not in a warrior, not in any human. "They're too many," she whispered, her voice trembling. "We can't fight them all." Elias shook his head. "We'll fight together. If they want a battle, they'll get one, but they won't take me without you." Her chest tightened. His words were simple, yet they carried a weight that struck deep into her heart. No one had ever said such a thing to her before, not even her own people, not even those who feared her. The first hunter lunged, blades slicing through the air with deadly precision. Dodged, twisting gracefully, but her heart raced as she saw another aim for Elias. In a heartbeat, she moved, placing herself between him and the strike. Sparks flew as the hunter's blade grazed her shoulder, and she felt the sharp sting, a reminder of her vulnerability despite her power. "Step back," she shouted, fear and desperation lacing her voice. "You'll get hurt." Elias shook his head, gripping the pipe. "I won't run, not from you, not from them." Her silver eyes softened, her lips parting slightly. "Not from me." The words echoed in her mind. He was the first human who had ever faced her without fear, without running. He was the first to trust her, to see her not as a weapon, but as a person. A hunter struck again, faster than her eyes could follow. Reflexively, grabbed the warrior's arm, and her lips brushed his neck in a desperate attempt to stop him. In an instant, he fell, lifeless, and stumbled backward, horrified at what she had done. Elias stared at her, eyes wide. "You didn't mean it, did you?" I didn't," she whispered, shaking. Her heart raced, a mixture of terror and relief flooding through her. She had always feared her own power, but now it had become her only defense to protect him. More hunters came, their blades slicing through the air, synchronized, relentless. Moved with deadly precision, her body a blur of silver and shadow, but she could feel the strain. Every motion carried the weight of protecting Elias, of keeping him alive while holding back the part of her that could destroy everything in an instant. Elias swung his pipe, striking at a hunter's leg, and his human strength was no match for the warrior's, but his courage made up for it. He dodged, he blocked, he fought beside her, refusing to run. Each time she glanced at him, his chest ached with something she had never allowed herself to feel, something dangerous and thrilling. Love. He shouted as a hunter aimed a deadly strike at her. Without hesitation, he pushed her aside, taking the blow himself. Pain twisted his face, but he stood, breathing heavily, refusing to fall. Her heart shattered and soared at the same time. "No, I won't let you die," she cried, rushing to his side. Her lips brushed his arm again, a reflex born of fear and love, and the hunter collapsed instantly. She stared at the lifeless body, trembling, realizing that her deadly curse was entwined with her emotions. Elias reached for her hand, their fingers brushing. "I'm not afraid of you," he whispered, pain and awe mixing in his voice. "Not now, not ever." Her silver eyes filled with tears, not afraid. That simple truth shook her to the core. For centuries, she had been feared, avoided, and hated. And here, in the middle of chaos, this fragile human was telling her that she was not a monster, that he trusted her, that he loved her. Another hunter lunged and moved faster than she had ever moved before, twisting, dodging, striking. Her lips brushed another hunter's neck, and he fell instantly. She cried out, not from pain, but from the intensity of the moment. Every life she ended, every hunter who fell, was because she refused to lose him. Elias pulled her close, despite the danger, holding her hand tightly. "We're together," he said firmly. "Whatever comes, we face it together." Her chest heaved with emotion, tears streaking her face, blending with the smoke and sparks around them. The hunters were strong, relentless, and yet they could not break them, not while they stood united, not while trust, courage, and love bound them together. In that instant, realized something she had never dared to hope. Her power, her curse, her deadly gift, was no longer a burden. It was a shield, a weapon, and a bond, all in one. And in the arms of the human who did not fear her, she finally felt whole. The battle raged around them, but Elias stood firm, side by side, hearts synchronized, ready to face whatever came next. And for the first time in her long, lonely life, she did not feel like a weapon. She felt alive. The shuttle bay was silent now, save for the occasional drip of water from a broken pipe and the soft hum of the failing station. The hunters lay still, their energy blades extinguished, their bodies scattered across the metal floor. Sank to her knees, trembling, her silver hair falling across her face. Her hands were slick with sweat and dust, and her lips quivered from the intensity of what had just happened. Elias moved beside her, wincing as he shifted his injured leg. His dark eyes were wide, filled with awe and exhaustion, but also something else, something that made her chest tighten, concern. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice soft and hesitant. She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. I didn't want to kill them," she whispered. "I never wanted to, but they were going to hurt you. They would have killed you if I did." Elias reached out, gently lifting her chin so their eyes met. He said, "You did what you had to do, you saved me, and maybe somehow that's enough." Her silver eyes filled with a storm of emotions, relief, fear, gratitude, and something more fragile and terrifying. Love. She had never been seen like this before. She had never been protected, never been trusted, never been told that her life mattered to someone else. And now here he was, this human, breathing hard, bleeding slightly, but still alive, still caring, still holding her hand. "I'm not used to this," she admitted, voice breaking. "To being wanted, to someone not being afraid of me. You're the first human who didn't run, the first person who—" Her voice faltered and she swallowed hard. "The first person who made me feel like I could exist, not just destroy." Elias squeezed her hand gently. "Then don't run from it," he said softly. "Don't run from us. I trust you, I care about you, and I'm not going anywhere." Her heart thudded violently. She had spent centuries believing her life was a curse, that her very existence was a weapon, a danger. But now, in the wreckage of the station, she felt something she never thought possible: hope. And more than hope, a connection, a bond that had survived fear, danger, and death itself. They moved toward the shuttle, stepping carefully over broken metal and sparking wires. His eyes scanned the area, still alert for danger, but something inside her had shifted. She no longer felt like a monster, no longer felt like a weapon. She felt human, and she felt him beside her, alive, breathing, trusting her. As they reached the shuttle, Elias stumbled slightly, pain etched across his face. Caught him instinctively, her hands pressing against his arms. Their faces were close, and for a heartbeat, she saw something in his eyes, something she had never seen before: unwavering trust. "You're warm," he whispered, brushing a strand of her silver hair from her face. "Even after everything, you're warm." Lips parted, trembling. That one word, warm, echoed in her heart. She had been feared, avoided, hated even by her own people. And yet this human, fragile, wounded, still alive, saw warmth. Not danger, not curse, not death, just her. The shuttle doors hissed as they opened, and Elias slipped inside first. Followed, moving carefully, her eyes never leaving his. As the engines whirred to life, shaking the shuttle slightly, she pressed herself against the wall, breathing hard. Every movement, every sound reminded her that they had survived, but barely, that their lives were fragile yet precious. Elias limped toward the control panel, his hand brushing hers as he helped her steady herself. "We made it," he said quietly, a small, exhausted smile on his face. "We're alive." His chest ached with emotion. "Yes," she whispered, "we are alive together." For a long moment they sat in silence, the hum of the shuttle filling the space. The station fell further behind them, collapsing in distant explosions that shook the metal walls. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, vast and silent, beautiful and terrifying. And inside, in that fragile, humming shuttle, they had found something neither had expected: each other. Elias reached for her hand again, holding it firmly. "You saved me," he said, voice soft but certain. "Not just with your strength, but with who you are, with your heart. I don't care about the curse, the danger, or what anyone else thinks. I care about you." Tears spilled down his cheeks as she whispered, I've never been told that before, that someone cared about me." He brushed a thumb gently across her cheek. "I do, and I will always." For the first time in centuries, felt something she had never allowed herself, belonging, not as a weapon, not as a curse, not as a feared being of legend, but as herself, alive, loving, warm, and loved in return. The stars stretched out before them, infinite and silent, and for the first time believed that maybe, just maybe, she could survive the galaxy not as a deadly weapon, but as a human capable of love, capable of hope, capable of warmth. The shuttle lifted, gliding away from the wreckage, carrying two souls who had faced fear, death, and legend, and had found each other amidst it all.